Thanks, everyone, for joining our webinar today, entitled Five Ways Optimization Tech and Data Impacts Pace, Efficiency, and Accountability at Willow Creek. We are presenting today in partnership with the CMAA Carolinas chapter, who we've been partners with for a few years. And I'm excited to introduce Dale Heflin, the GM at Willow Creek Golf Course. Dale, how are you this morning?
Doing wonderful. Hope everybody else is.
Um, no reason not to. And thank you all for making some time. We've got a lot of exciting points to discuss today. One of them is the question of special rules around cart path and cart stops and so on, and who does that apply to? It's definitely a theme. But before we go into more detail, Dale, I'd love for you to give us a quick introduction to yourself and your career in golf, and also what do we need to know about Willow Creek Golf Club?
All right. Willow Creek Golf Club's in Greer, South Carolina. I've been here for approximately 4.5 years. Prior to this, my long stint was at the original course I started at here in Greenville, Bonnie Bray Golf Club. Was there for 28 years. Uh, Owners ended up selling the property for development, which was kind of bittersweet. I feel like I'm in a better situation now. Um, we here at Willow Creek, last 3 years, we've averaged right at 52,000 rounds a year. Um, it doesn't matter price increases or otherwise. Right now, this Greenville market is saturated with golfers. We've had two course closures. One of them I was working at. So between two courses closing, that's, about probably would have been close to 100,000 rounds,
Sure.
rehomed. Plus the population spike is just it just is not slowing down. So we're in high demand, the whole Greenville market. So we're a semi-private club, and what we're hearing is everybody's on a waiting list, private or otherwise. We have approximately 185 active members, and I have, at last count, right at 200 on our waiting list.
More on the wait list than live. A good place
That
to
is
be. Tell
correct.
me, Dale,
And
when did the other courses close? Was that in that 2009
28 Bonnie
period
Bray
or?
closed at 28 in 2018.
Okay.
Of course, just a mile and a half down the road,
Hmm.
Legacy Pines, they closed in 20 the I think the fall of 22
Hmm.
or the spring of 23. Um, and I've been in the Greenville market for the time that I have. As soon as Legacy Pines was announced that they were, planning to close, I had people that were members there. I mean, we picked up probably 40 members
Sure.
when that closure took place here. We picked them up. Um, the it's kind of crazy. Doing this as long as I have, I can pretty much call customers by name.
Mm.
Um, and when I started here, my staff was kind of baffled because people would walk in the door and they'd go right past the counter and come back to see me in my office. So it's kind of like a impromptu reunion on some days.
Yeah.
But I love what I do. If I was in it for the money, I'd be doing something different. But I'm a people person, and when we have bad weather days or weeks of inclement weather, my wife always accuses me of being depressed because I can't be around people.
Yeah.
Now, on the contrary, when I'm done for the day, I don't feel like going out and being around people. So I kind of turn into a homebody once I exit the doors.
Um, well, we all need to balance, right? But amazing story, and thanks for keeping the doors open for the the golfers in Greenville. And yeah, I'm very certain that given that last few years of tailwinds that the industry has had, that yeah, we'll have no further closures in the area. All the courses should be doing really well. And obviously, as you know, the bigger numbers are golf 25% up in participation over the last 5, 6 years. But we are down, and to your point, from the high point of capacity that was in that post Tiger Woods build boom, right? So, so you as operators are having to, or have the privilege of having full tee sheets, and you get to manage and steward more golf than we've ever seen, which is fantastic. But it also comes with challenges, right? Got to do it well. So, yeah, I'm excited to dig a little bit more into how you guys do that and keep your players coming back. If you'll allow me a quick introduction to Tag Marshall, we have now, yeah, as a company, tracked 100 million rounds of golf, and most certainly also seen the upswing in demands on tee sheets in recent years. And for us, data is a big teacher and coach. Our system gets better the more data it ingests. So every weekend that we're tracking golf, we can see yeah, more patterns, and we can make our system more preemptive. And at the same time, yeah, we're also blessed to work with really, really good operators. I'm on a call with one, but also, you know, some fantastic names. I think if you were to do a Tag Marshall tour from Pebble Beach and abandoned dunes all the way across the states to the orcas at St Andrews, and end up in Te Arai in New Zealand, you'd have a couple of years of fantastic golf ahead. And there's also obviously the tours that we get to work with, and their use cases have also yeah, been a great teacher to us, and we have fed a lot of those system feature opportunities that we've built out into the broader Tag Marshall program. Yeah, but back to you, Dale. Like you said, you've been at it for a couple of decades, and you've seen yeah, lots of ups and downs in the industry. But yeah, what are the things that matter most, you would say, to golfers, and that you need to take care of if you want your golfers happy? And if you're looking at this list here, it's obviously not exhaustive. There's many other items that we could focus on, but if you had to pick three, which ones would they be?
Just the feedback and knowing the golfers, enjoyment of the layout is has weight with others more than others. But I think the conditions, consistent conditions, primarily greens. I mean, you can be lacking in some other areas, but if you have bad greens, I think the customers, um, they have a hard time swallowing that pill when they're paying for it. But I'd say, the conditions, pace of play is probably, I would say when I started, it was our number one issue, number one complaint in reviews. Part of that was self-inflicted, in my opinion,
Sure.
by my, staff that was just conditioned to herd people through.
Mm,
But yeah, I would say of those, I would say conditioning, pace of play, um, probably the value and cost.
mhm,
We've crept our prices up in the last 4 years, but prior to that, we had not. My predecessors had not touched the pricing in almost a decade. So I became the bad guy when I started raising rates and doing away with certain discounts.
mm,
Um, but general feedback. I mean, if I was going to prioritize based on what I know since I've been here, pace of play, flow of play, has probably leapfrogged some of the others that I would say,
mm.
me personally, it's more about conditions.
Sure.
Um, perk of the business is you get comped rounds when you go play places. So that doesn't necessarily factor into my decision. It's in, course design and conditions. Um, but there are golfers that are all about the cost.
Hmm.
And they will gravitate towards whatever works in their budget.
Hmm.
But the playing partners, uh, for some, but they have the opportunity to pick who they're playing with most of the time.
Yeah.
If they're a
Yeah.
single or a twosome, you're always kind of rolling the dice at who you get paired up
Mm.
with. But there's a lot of friendships that people don't realize that get established, or work connections, or just long-term friendships that develop
Sure.
by that random pairing.
Sure.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but um, at Bonnie Bray, gosh, it would have been in the early 90s. Um, we started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had a twosome on the list, and I had another twosome that called, and we booked them together.
Hmm.
Um, they didn't want to necessarily play with anybody because they were talking work and business. Well, I basically said they didn't have an option, and come to find out, they worked in the same field but for competing companies.
Hmm.
They became a regular foursome on Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. Uh, Over the course of time, they were best men in each other's weddings, and
Oh, wow.
competing sales, forces.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a unique situation. But there's more of that happens probably
Sure.
across the globe
Mm.
than not, where you just don't ever really hear those stories.
Mm.
Once again, once you start seeing people on a regular basis,
Mm.
if you want to call it a friendship, but there's some form of a relationship there that creates a comfort and a welcome when they walk in the door. And I don't think that
Sure.
you can put a price tag on that.
You're so right. I think community is one of the key factors around what keeps playing people in the game, right? The stats say the highest risk of people leaving the game again is within the first 2 years. And if you can create community, then and they become part of it and there's belonging, they'll stick with it. But here's another idea. I think to your point, if I think if golf as an industry was paid dividends for all the deals that were ever made on golf courses, we could all play free golf forever, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The issue now, and technology's kind of caught up with the salesmen that were working the system. I mean, it used to be, everybody carried a pager, and you could always, oh, I never got your page. Well, now they got phones that got trackers, they have cars that have trackers,
Sure.
especially company issued stuff. So unless you are in a situation where you can, just set aside 5, 6 hours to have a sales,
Mhm.
day with a customer. Some of that's kind of going, I think, is being stressed in that relationship form, but
Sure.
um, yeah, it's hard to say how many hundreds of thousands of business deals had been locked in just by playing golf.
Plenty, plenty for sure. Um, yeah, great. Thanks for. I can see how deep your roots are in golf just from that little story, and it's awesome to hear. And I think that's what makes golf so special. That's where memories are made, and you are a steward of that, right? And I think
Oh, 100%.
wonderful to hear that. Yeah, the community, the people come first. And yes, but what they want is from you conditioning, pace of play, certain things. So yeah, picking up on your trends that you mentioned, the USGA has done some research, as has the National Golf Course Owners Association. You mentioned them earlier. Course conditioning always comes out tops with players. 82% say that's the top critical factor for them. So, but you know that too, right? Your superintendent and Green's budget is substantial always. Playing partners, you mentioned that is important to, and but that's for the most part can be organized. And then number three, very close to that, 74% of players are saying pace and flow of play is critical to them. And I would wager now that we're so blessed in having more younger people in the game, they're generally a bit more time starved, right? So either they're early in their career or they have young kids. Whereas, yeah, when I'm 60, hey, if it takes 20 minutes longer, it's probably not gonna ruin my day. But younger players, they do have different needs. Interestingly enough, the NGCOA's research shows that also 84% of operators feel that pace and flow of play is critical, and maybe for those reasons, right? We're trying to attract and cement that younger cohort of players into the game for a lifetime, and we have to yeah, lock in into what they really need from us, right? So I think you're bang on. Um, Let me shift to one other really interesting point of research, and the USGA has worked here with the University of Wisconsin on, I think it was a 2 year or so program, maybe 18 months, and they went to a bunch of different golf courses for extended periods, doing observations and also tracking play. They happened to use a tag marshal to track play and track individual players, not just groups. It was really interesting, and what they wanted to learn was how many touch points are there in a golf experience? Which ones float to the top and make people's day, and which ones ruin people's day? Which ones make people love the game and come back, and which ones chase them away, right? And 1,000 touch points sounds crazy, but if you think through the that cycle of booking, pre-round, arrival, on course, post round, and then again booking pre-round, next round. There's a lot of touch points, including the booking, driving through the gate, being greeted, checking in, finding your cart, whatever it is, right? So there's everyone is a touch point. What they found was that the top and bottom rated out of 1,000 are both pace related. So corrective pace of play actions, absolute worst thing, perfect for straighter. Corrective pace of play actions, you guess it, is somebody coming over to the play and saying, hey, you're slow, get on with it. Right, you're too slow, get a move on. So that players can't tolerate. And then on the flip side, if that is done well, positive ranger etiquette, positive, friendly, assisting conversations that's not confrontational ranks on the other end of the scale. So with solving one problem, we can do away with the one and get a green tick box on the other. And then the next two are also related. Other people's speed is so frustrating. Like if I feel I'm being held up, and I know what you're going to say, Dale. Sometimes it's perception, and sometimes people have a fast play problem. They're just too quick pushing into others, but how do we know? And then on the flip side, somewhere in the top 10, and obviously conditioning's above that somewhere, information provider at pace of play, expectations, scorecard, golf carts, starter, clubhouse, wherever there's opportunities to communicate pace policies and the expectations is key to players because they think they're fast and everyone else is slow and they don't want everyone else to get in their way. Anyway, so in your experience, yeah, how does that filter into you having managed a bunch of golf courses pre-technology with I don't know how you even tried. It's really difficult and not an easy job to get out there and get people to move versus, and we're going to talk about that in detail, obviously, now that you have technology. But share some of the pain points of what used to be issues before you had tech to help you do this well.
Well, I think anybody that's worked behind the counter is taking a phone call. This group's got the whole course backed up. There's 3 holes open in front of this group, blah, blah, blah. And so you immediately dispatch a person out. Come to find out, they may only be a half a hole behind, and the group that called in is just, you know, in a hurry.
Mm,
But typically, I mean, without the technology aspect of it, you know, usually when you found out a group was playing too slow, they've already set the pace and everybody behind them is kind of locked in. Um, so when you go out, you have to let them know. It's always awkward letting somebody know, hey, if you can't pick up the pace, you're gonna have to let a group play through every other hole or something like that. Um, but even with the technology, having the dashboard, being able to see, using the gap time monitor, um, you know, gives you an idea. And the thing that really was a game changer for us, we don't necessarily have to have rangers as frequent.
mm,
I always
sure.
try to encourage my staff if you have some downtime, just make a trip around. You never know what somebody might need a ride in, somebody might have an issue going on. But the presence on the golf course, chances of catching somebody doing damage are slim to none in real time. Um,
Mm,
but for pace of play purposes, the thing with the tag marshal, having the monitor in the cart, it shows their kind of their target time, where they are plus or minus. Um, and it took a long time for my guys. I tried to explain to them that, you can be ahead of schedule and still be
Mm,
holding people up. And
mm,
this kind of brought that to their attention. There are faster groups, slower groups on the course, and they are pretty much all intermingled because we can't
mm.
pre-qualify them like NASCAR for the starting grid. But when a group is ahead of schedule and they're still playing at a pace that everybody behind them is waiting, I had
Mm.
to kind of, basically have a tutorial on it's created by how fast you clear the different zones on the golf
Sure.
course
Yeah.
and how fast the groups behind you are
Mm.
playing those same zones, and it'll deem you as a delayer.
Sure.
Um, and once they had a little bit of an understanding on that, it made sense to them because, they're looking at the pace monitor as their baseline, and as
Mm.
if they're on pace or ahead, then I can't fuss at them for being on pace.
Sure.
But if there's a hole or so open in front of them, um, I'll suggest maybe letting a group play through if they're being
Mm.
pushed. But the great thing about Tag Marshall is when you see a group starting to lag behind, you can just send them a message,
Mm.
directly to the carts, and, be aware of your pace and those behind you. In some cases, I'll even let them know where the group in front of them is, just so they have a perspective. Uh,
Sure.
but and once again, as they're on pace, it's hard to tell them speed up.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that the difference between pace and flow is in that, right? But I think you mentioned something important, and that is, yeah, if a group's half a hole behind, that is exactly a message that we can convey that they will understand, right? So that's where the positive, friendly, assisting nature of having that interaction can change from, hey guys, you're slow, get on with it, to, hey, the system tells us you're currently X minutes behind, or you're currently half a hole behind. Obviously, that's visible. Please help us catch up. And for the most part, players will be, yeah, sure, like, easy, right? We've got it. Or they might say, well, today difficult for us. Can the other guys play through? Problem solved. But I think the other item that's important is you don't only want your team to go out looking for problems and looking for reprimanding conversations. They actually now have an opportunity where they're knowing, hey, there are two groups that are currently an issue. Everyone else is good. Every interaction they have can be positive, right? They might say, hey, hole 14, we've set up as a treat for you guys today. Or did you know that we have XYZ special on in the grill and we hope to see you later? Those are positive interactions, right? And people, and I know that you're a master of that, people want to feel welcome and seen. So that changes that I'm here to police you to, hey, like I know exactly where I need to be. This is one group, everyone else good. So I'm going to have positive interaction with as many people as I can.
Yeah, I would say that, it's just like a police officer. Most
Yeah.
people's interaction with the police officer is a negative, starts out as a negative situation. And they're
Mm.
already, everybody's already defensive. So when you have a ranger that pulls up or is waiting at the tee or the green for you to arrive, people's natural reaction is automatically to put the defense mode in
Yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
even when a group is behind, if we have to go out, and even in the messages, I never really tell the group that's slow that they're playing slow. I will
Hmm.
address the first thing as, hey, listen, the group in front of you was started falling behind. We sent them a message,
Yeah.
that they picked up the pace and, created a little gap in front of you. So if you can try to, close that gap, it would be great. I know you got settled in on a specific pace, but we had to address a different group, which
Yeah.
adversely is making you look like the slow group. And just kind of a little mental trickery there. They
Mhm.
don't ever have really any interaction with the group in front of them,
Sure.
until they get caught back up. But if they think that the other group was the one addressed, it takes the personal offense off of the table. So
100%. Well, nothing to fight over, right? You asked the other group ahead that may or may not have slowed us down to pick up the pace, and now we also have to do that, no problem. You're solving what you need to solve, and they're none the wiser, but you're adjusting their behavior in a way that benefits the team and everyone else on the golf course. How do you know where to go, though, right? And that's where, yeah, the technology is helpful. So just for those of you who don't know, we have a number of system solutions that can go into your golf carts. So that may be Yamaha, Club Car, EasyGo, other brand. It doesn't matter. We're agnostic, right? So we can install an 8-inch or a 10-inch screen into your cart, or we can just install a tracker and including a cart stop that's hidden away if that's more suitable. We also will track your walkers, which is a key component for many courses. And what these units do is they constantly feed data back into our system. And then we have a live map that shows you exactly what's going on and puts some intelligence behind that. There's about 10 algorithms running that determine what the actual problem is, not just where everyone is, which actually doesn't tell you all that much. You need to know what's the trend and who's holding up others and who's the real problem rather than knowing where everyone is, or if a whole day is 20 minutes out, now everyone's red, that doesn't help you solve the problem either, right? So we've put lots of effort into making that as accurate and preemptive as possible. And then we have a lot of underlying data that helps you make better decisions around staffing. Dale mentioned that already. On what days, what hours do we need to pay attention versus when does the system autopilot the course? And then also, yeah, what setups work, what setups don't work, what holes are out of sync to how we thought they should run. And you're just collecting data automatically the whole time, and then you can tweak and improve. Yeah, going back to Willow Creek, what cartridge do you guys have in play? And you guys got the 8-inch system installed,
we,
is that right?
we do, yeah, we have the 8-inch system. We have two starter tablets that my guys uh, they were a little slow to warm up to it.
Mm,
Most of them are not too tech savvy. But once they understood that, just it's just like operating their smartphone basically. And this winter I'm going to go through the Learning Academy and kind of get them to watch some of those videos that are
mhm.
relevant to their role. Um, just so they can be a little bit more understanding, I guess, is the best thing.
Sure.
And understand what the big picture is and what we're trying to do with, the system as a whole. But when you can do the reports. There's so much information that we're not even scratching yet in the full capabilities, and I think that's the awesome part of this.
Mm,
Um, when you can start pulling really detailed reports either on a specific golfer or your business day.
mhm.
um I mean, you can get fully engulfed in all this data, but it makes everything kind of has a different perspective to it once you see what is truly being captured.
Sure. Yeah, I know that it also for you as a manager is peace of mind to know, well, I'm down the road or I'm at an event, let me check what's happening at the course. Is everything in hand? And you can just pull up your phone, right? Um, so yeah, we mentioned that we want to give that bird's eye view and really put intelligence behind everything that moves out on the course. And we can include your superintendent, yeah, fleet in that too, so you know who's where. But we really want to understand what are the problems, and we have a color code that goes magenta, purple. That's your issue in terms of they're holding up others behind them. Somebody might be out of position, but it's not their fault. So that's obviously the aggrieved group here. They're orange. We've got one up here to that side. And then we've got sometimes a group is out of position, but they're not impacting anyone. So you know immediately that's the color and it's a big icon, right? So that's what we got to focus on. Everyone else is good. And it literally takes 3 seconds to see that. Um, Question, you mentioned that yeah, you have the tablets where your team can see that. Who else have you got dialed in, or where do you see opportunities for others to on the team potentially to learn about it and get more familiar?
Well,
But
we keep
with your workflow, where do you look at the
Yeah,
system?
so we have two computers at our front counter. Our main point of sale check-in computer, and the other one secondary is basically for booking tea times while the other's tied up. But I keep the dashboard pulled up on that computer um, during operating hours, just so they can refer to that periodically. Oh, excuse me. Um, you know, I don't necessarily encourage them to send direct messages to the carts unless it is a just a absolute must.
Hmm.
Um, I want to set some parameters on that, and the reason I say that is we had uh, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, we had a group that looked like they were almost two holes behind,
Hmm.
but when they sent the message out, they didn't realize that there was two groups of walkers in front of
Sure.
them that didn't show on the map,
Sure.
which then gave the perception. So they sent a message to a group that was standing in the fairway waiting for a green to clear of a foursome of walkers that didn't get recognized on the dashboard.
Got
So
you.
I try to get them to get an idea, check with the starters,
Mm.
because if a group goes out as walkers, there's no tags assigned. So the starter can confirm one way or the other. Yeah, there's a group of walkers too, or whatever, on a standpoint of just getting all the information before you send a message. And it's even that way, if you send rangers out, you don't want them to go out blind without any, true working knowledge of what's going on in front of them.
Yeah.
If a group's playing in 3.5 hours, I can't expect somebody to push them around the golf course. And so, they can get behind, but they're not really behind. And once again, that's where the pace monitor on the dashboard or on the monitor itself um, kind of factors in.
Yeah, so one of the workflows that's always important for us to close a loop on is that we want to integrate the T sheet, right? And then have the T sheet data, player names as best as possible, and then also, yeah, are they going to walk, or do they have carts? Which carts do they have for that to filter through? And so we have 20 or so integrations, and I know that the T sheet you guys use is currently in progress from the provider side. They're not, unfortunately, the quickest to say yes to integrations, but we'll get there. And then your team will automatically see, hey, there's actually two walking groups out, and then yeah, that one little use case is then covered too. But let's jump ahead on. You mentioned that the colors are the same for the golfers, right? So they can see I'm now a delayer, I'm 10 minutes out, okay? And that obviously shifts their attention, and then the system generates a warning that they need to acknowledge, right? So that hopefully they will self-police. And for the most part, in our experience, if they have the information, they will, right? They will pick things up. They don't want to be the slow pokes. So they just need to know. And once they have information, normally they're compliant. But you can send them a message. You're out of position. Please catch up. And yeah, make that as computable as possible, like we spoke about.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the direct messaging is underrated
hmm,
in many ways because you can send the general message or the pace warning or even the weather alert. And because we
yeah.
don't have like a storm detection system that sounds any sirens, the
Uh-huh.
golfers are accountable, for their own safety per se.
Mhm.
But, not everybody's looking at the phone and checking their radar.
Sure.
And so seeing clouds roll through, they don't necessarily think about it. So one of the things that I have been complimented on is we've been trying to be a little bit more diligent with sending that weather alert
Sure.
and just broadcast it to the whole list of carts on the course. You
Mhm.
know, weather's moving into the area. Use your discretion.
Sure.
If you decide to come in, rain checks are available. Blah, whatever we
Yeah,
message.
yeah,
But I've received a lot of compliments because we have these strong pop-up storms. They move
sure.
fast. They dump a lot of rain, lightning,
Yeah,
and then they're gone. Um,
yeah,
that that just that little bit of forewarning, even if they don't come in a lot of ways, I had people, I mean, point blank tell me that it prompted them to pick up their phone to look at the radar,
yeah,
and make a decision accordingly. So, uh, and once again, the more you can keep a customer informed or more that they can appreciate the effort, you're going to establish a long-term customer just by doing that little extra. And I think that's the area of golf that I think for a long time everything became transactional.
yeah,
And I would say it's more like that resort to resort golf than it is, the private club or even the daily fee course. But I think,
yeah,
establishing just certain protocols lets the customer know, hey, they are paying attention, they are looking out for us,
yeah.
and you offer, let them know that there's rain checks available if they decide to pull up. Um, and they appreciate that. And that's really
Sure.
the one thing that I think everybody's positive experiences from course to course across the country, even worldwide, is how they felt
Yeah,
at check-in and before they even went to the first tee sets the platform for the enjoyment of the day.
yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think that's exactly where I feel technology has an important role to play in that you can reach everyone on the golf course with a click of a button and make them safe. Or so just on the technology side, you can have a single card that you send a message to right there in the sidebar, or you can say send a message to all live cards that are out and round. And you can then have different types of messages. So the weather message, like you mentioned, inclement weather warning, it's got a storm cloud on it, and then you can customize what it needs to say. But the use case here is, yeah, we've got a lot of courses that offer twilight golf, right? They might say, okay, like 15 minutes, the light's gone, and then we'll ask you to come back to the clubhouse. Please pick up your ball. Boom, send out the message to everyone instead of going out there chasing people. Because, hey, somebody might have fantastic night vision and they think they can finish their round. It doesn't work for your team, right? Other people might say, I'm invincible, I'm Thor, I'm going to play through whatever comes my way. Well, not necessarily clever. You also have a responsibility, and that's not the news you want. Get them back to safety. So I think the perception on what's weather risk, how dark is dark, pace of play is in the eye of the beholder. And you can, like you said, have processes and guidelines around that and just keep people safeguarded. And I think, yeah, so the live management is point number one. How are you guys getting better and better at management? Number two is accountability and efficiency. So the geofencing and the track map is key here. And accountability obviously goes the player's way because you process a lot of golf, over 50,000 rounds. Your superintendent will have sleepless nights at times. You need to make sure that you protect your turf and make it through the season because the moment you don't do that, players will come back and say, well, the green's complex, this and that, and it's looking shoddy, and then they don't want to come back or they feel like your rates are too high, so you have to protect it, right? So one of the system features that's helpful is what we call the track map, which is a history of every round that was played. And we're including the pace and how people went for pace at various checkpoints, but also whether compliant when it comes to geofencing or card parts only, that sort of thing. And were there any interactions, messages sent? Because later on, and sometimes out of the blue, you might get a complaint or you might see a complaint on Google a week later, right? So what do you even do? Or you might realize that this group really isn't compliant around card parts. They're messing around. I need data to have a conversation. So do you have any war stories on where this has come in handy for you? Is that something that you guys use, the track map?
Oh my gosh, yes. Um, Early before we actually activated the the cart stop feature, we set everything just to an alert. So basically, for 2.5, 3 weeks, as we were getting the mapping kind of dialed in, the golfers would get these alerts when they took them into areas that we were presetting.
Hmm.
Drove them nuts. They were frustrated. And I just, had to let them know, listen, right now it's just going to beep at you and drive you crazy. I said, but when it goes active, I said, it's going to stop you in your tracks and you're going to have to reverse out. So learn to look at the monitor. We have it set with the fencing, as you can see in the picture here, the tees and greens. Um, and, early on we had a little bit of, variance in what the mapping to what our fencing was.
Hmm.
And 12 to 18 inches in some cases, when you're trying to put an edge on a cart path at a tee box and it looks right on the screen, but then the fencing was off just a little bit in the actual map. Um, People were sitting on the cart path and their cart would disable, and it's like,
Sure.
okay, we got some issues. We got to get this fixed. So as we got through that, everybody's still in a learning curve. I think what throws them off is with the ability to adjust the fencing from day to day. If I'm out or the superintendent is out and we see a wear pattern from cart
Hmm.
traffic, we can extend the zone a little bit closer to the green or pull it back to, give the turf some rest. Huge benefit we kept all winter long coming into the transition, 150 yards in, depending on the hole. We put restriction, and the thing that was most talked about was how good the grass was in those
Yeah.
areas, and it was solely because of no cart traffic.
Yeah.
Um, and so we still have guys that will kind of push the limits on where the fencings are. You're gonna have people do that everywhere, but it's gotten better and better. I think the
Sure.
the big thing is the cart staff and the starters conveying the message that, hey, pay attention to the monitors. The fencing is these red line areas. If you get into those, expect your cart to stop and you'll have to reverse out.
Hmm.
But pay attention even more so because they change periodically. So what yesterday could have been full access is
Hmm.
now no access. Um, but I would say the one of the best features is being able to go in and on days where it's cart path only, you basically are hitting two or three buttons and the whole course has got automatic restrictions.
Sure.
Um, and even more so today, I'll use today as an example. Our 14th hole today is cart path only. Everything from the local community neighborhood kind of drains down across that fairway to get to the creek, and it stays wet for a day or two longer than the
Hmm.
others. Superintendent says, "Hey, let's make 14 path only." Boom, I make a couple clicks.
Yeah.
And I have it set in the advertising module to message when they get to that tee box.
Hmm.
As a reminder, it's cart path only all the way through this hole. And the customers appreciate that. Um, I accidentally left the ad on one week for hole 14. They had full access, but the alert would pop up cart path only. So we had about half the people would comply to cart path only because they're rule followers, and the others say, "Well, I
Sure.
don't see red line, so I'm going."
I'm going, sure.
Yeah, so
Well,
and I didn't realize it, and I actually went out and played 9 holes one afternoon, and that popped up on 14 tee box, and I was like,
yeah,
wait a minute, it's not path only. So I had to make the turn. I'd come in and turn that off. So
gotcha. Well, look, it's great to hear. And if your feedback is, well, the majority of people are compliant, they can see it on the screen where they're not supposed to go. If they do go, it starts to beep. If they keep going, it stops them. And the majority of people are compliant. They just need information, right? And then at the end of
totally.
the season or at any point, if you're getting rave reviews about your conditioning, well, then you've done your job, right? Rather than the three people who saying, "Why did you stop the cart? Don't you trust me?" Well,
Exactly.
trust is earned,
You
right?
know,
So
I
I
don't,
think,
how many people, to all the people that are watching,
yeah,
that are participating, I will add this, and we didn't talk about it, but we briefly before we went live. If you're issuing the handicap flags or giving special privileges, get as much up to speed as you can on what the ADA has designed. You know, they have
Mhm.
exemptions for golf courses, for accessibility. The accessibility and the freedom to take a golf cart everywhere are two different things.
Sure,
And you'll have people that will push the envelope, but the National Golf Course Owners Association and the ADA and the USGA, there are some things online that you can print. And you know what people don't realize is there's a difference between handicap and being disabled.
sure,
And it's, I think you can use discretion. You'll
Mhm.
have some people that get really upset, but if you're keeping carts 30 feet from the green, 30 yards from the green for everybody, you know, the issue that I experienced was these guys were coming in wanting their cart disabled, and
Mm.
they walked 300 yards from the parking lot up a flight of steps and carried their bag and then they come in, so I need a handicap flag.
Sure,
um I have people that basically are dragging a leg behind them that don't even ask.
yeah, yeah,
So as operators, we do have the discretion on how we approach that, and we are protected, and to a certain extent by what's been decided with the USGA, the ADA restrictions,
sure.
and card accessibility. There is some established protocol or some established um, practices that are out there.
I think that's a very important point, and obviously that was the start of our conversation because you can disable the cart stop and the geofencing function for a specific cart on request, right? So, and then obviously that group can then get yeah into areas that may be blocked off for others. Yeah, good of you to mention. Um, what do we have here? Yeah, forward motion disabled. That's what it says. Okay, you got to back out. But the other thing that's an opportunity, and we spoke about accountability now for the players, is from an efficiency standpoint. And I love the value that you're seeing. And hey, t touch two buttons, and I can protect the course. And you mentioned it, a big rain comes in. Sometimes you have to do that. But that interface also gives you opportunities to advertise and have player communication. You mentioned you're very nice in telling them, hey, the next hole is carpath only, even though the whole course is open. I think it's great. If more information is always better, but yeah, ads obviously reach the players too. Tell us a bit how you're thinking about that, and if that's something that you potentially want to turn on and do more of into the future.
Yeah, the ad that you see on the left there is actually one of the local stretch clinic facilities that I've got to know the owner. And as we were kind of getting started with this, I said, well, send me some of your media material and I'll kind of use you as a guinea pig, and just kind of see and piddle and play with it. We haven't fully jumped in and started working on, potentially selling ads. I think that's a revenue source that is untapped and unknown at this point. But the way I look at it is, I mean, if it pays a salary for one employee over the course of a year, it's served a
Mhm.
purpose. It's paying for itself.
Sure.
Um, the the options there, I think, are as much as you want them to be. As an operator, I think delegating some staff, if you have ample staff, delegating some staff to learn the different features and kind of be uh, proactive in a sense of just leading them and letting them be involved, because any experience that they have and can, rectify or mitigate any issues, it just creates a higher value,
Sure.
for the staff, and it just brings an element of uh, being able to have a customer go to a specific person, a
Mm,
starter, and say, well, he handles this, talk directly to him.
mhm,
But the advertising component, I think, on an on-course message board,
mhm.
like this is, I mean, you can set the duration of time that you want it to be popped up, give them the option to close out if they so need to. Um, I've only done this ad and two others for some people. I just wanted to kind of put it out there for them. A couple of them are regular players, so they would see it pop up. And I think trying to create or establish a value to what
Mhm.
that is for them. I mean, of the 52,000 rounds, the majority of them are riders. If
Sure.
a message pops up once or twice during the round,
Mhm,
it'll get somebody's attention.
mhm.
The other side of that is a lot of people will just, as soon as it pops up, they'll just close the ad when they have that option.
Sure. Look, I love that this is golf related, right? And it's a local business. So what we see often works is to put a QR code on and just get on people's phones. And you're right, like out of 50,000 rounds, maybe there's 50 that are interested, but 10 of them turned into a customer is worth a lot to this company, right? But going back to another thing that you said that I really appreciate, and I was at a Golf Inc. or similar conference a while ago, and there was roundtable discussions, and one of the manager groups said when it was the question was asked about technology, how would you want to go about it? They said we as GMs realize we need to learn everything there is to be learned about a system so we can teach our team. And said like, no, actually not. You need to delegate to the capable people within your team so they can become your champions, right? You need to know the broad strokes of how the system works. And then you get your champions to really own it. And this is where we have put together what we call role specific training. And literally within an hour, you can be a better starter with some of the features that you're learning about. I know there's features that you're never going to look at. We're not going to teach them to you. So this is where the an hour, half an hour of training makes a big difference. And then you have specialists, right? And they have more competency around how they can engage with your golfers. Um, yeah, talking about competency, obviously you as a GM want data and you want to know how we're doing. Are we trending right? Are we getting better? And that's where data-driven understanding is key. And you mentioned this earlier, the reporting, you can do a single day view. So this is single individual tee times. The colors carry through the system the same again. Here's a group that held up a few others, and then you got things back on track. And there were some messages exchanged with that group, session interactions were logged. Or you can look at a week, you can look at a month, and you can look at the performance also on a hole by hole basis and the breakdown of who's fast by 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes on pace, 10 minutes slow, 20 minutes slow, what have you. So you really see the trend lines. And this is a great day at the office for you guys, right? This individual day, maybe not the busiest day you've ever had, but 3:45 versus a 4:20 goal time. You probably don't need anyone out there patrolling. The system will do it for you. And the only time you need to pay attention was with that one group at around lunchtime. Yeah, so just briefly, and I do have to speed us up a little bit, Dale, so we can close out the last point in the next 5 minutes or so. Yeah, how is the reporting helpful to you guys, or to you as a manager regarding ownership or regarding staff accountability, regarding just learning what to do, off what to
That's a
do
good
less?
question. I would say there's two things I'm going to say as an operator standpoint. This report, when you get the mouse or the cursor over one of the bars of the post round data, you can click on it. It tells you who it is, pulls up all their round time information, shows their breaches. Um, and you can show this to a group if they question what you say to them.
Mm,
Um, I did this in our grill after I had about six groups of seniors that finished up. hooked my laptop up, brought this up live. It showed the carts moving. I said, well, which group did you start today? They told me. I clicked on it. It showed their breaches. It showed the data, the track of their cart. And they were blown away because they said, well, you can see all that. I
Mm,
said, I can tell you exactly where you took your cart, when and
mm,
where, and how fast you were going when you got there.
mm.
And that kind of changed their perspective on knowing that I know, that
Sure.
knowing that we know what they're doing. But on the flip side, I think the biggest obstacle or get on board with is for the starting staff.
Mhm.
There's an accuracy, a starter accuracy that I think, I didn't focus on it too much early on, but we're trying to create the spacing and the atmosphere,
Mm,
hold them to the 10-minute interval tee times.
mhm.
Um, and the starter accuracy, I think, is something that we may not as emphatically emphasize it,
Mhm.
but going forward, seeing the reports and seeing where we can, improve the overall pace or the experience for the golfer, if they're holding on to their tee time, somebody can have a little bit of a hiccup on a hole and not back everything up or get too far behind.
Yeah.
And my starters it's taken a while for them to kind of conform, but they're
Mm.
getting better.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So what we're learning is um, improve your messaging, right? If you're having an interaction, make it constructive, don't say slow, simple things. Then the other one is if a group is falling behind or they're really starting to be a problem within the first 5 hours, get them early. It's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. And then the
100%.
next one is you need to control controllables, and starter interval accuracy is absolutely essential because if your starter is well-meaning and oh, this group's a bit late, send them out. The next group is a bit early, send them out. He's now reducing your 10 minutes to five. That's going to cause an issue very quickly. Whereas if there's accuracy around that, you have more controllables. But look, you guys are doing a fantastic job. You brought in your whole season in 4 hours and 8 minutes. Um, yeah, I think you can put this all over your social media, and your players will agree. Like you have good days all the time. So what we're trying to understand with the seasonal data is how does the day run hour by hour? What are the how does the individual days run in the week? Where do we need to pay attention? And then obviously the breakdowns month by month. Things get very busy for you guys. It's that's evident. But as you're getting better with the system, you're actually bringing your average run times down compared to where they were in March. And I know that there's also a difference between how much member play do you have versus open play. But yeah, it's good to have that. And then also the breakdown of what hours of the day do we need to pay attention where there's a bit more slow play risk potentially versus what hours of the day are auto-piloted, right? And I'm flying a little bit here, you must excuse me, but the whole by whole run times are important. And we also, and you said that players need to understand how much time do you spend on the tee, get out the zone, how much on the fairway, how much on the green. And we want to break this down because yeah, tee box wait time obviously is a enjoyment killer very often. So we want to understand, do the holes run in line with expectations? Where can we tweak? Where are we fast, right? And sometimes, yeah, you can get 2 holes, 2 or 3 minutes improvement within a hole, and other times you have to actually buy time for a hole that is too quick and just make the hole before that a little bit more difficult, right? So you can only know that once you have data. And then that brings me to the last opportunity. And I know that you have, as a executive decision, adjusted your course to be manageable to begin with and said, look, guys, we used to overload things. It was difficult to manage. Let's set things for 10-minute intervals. But the opportunity is, well, now that we understand things, we have good controls and there's paces well in hand. Where can we find opportunities to tweak intervals and get people to move a bit quicker? And the data shows us that, right? Because, hey, 2 or 3 more tee times gained is bottom line and can be reinvested. And that's where, yeah, we know that there's lots of courses that yeah, might get taken over by a management group and they just have the tools, including Tag Marshal, and the confidence to say, we can take this from 11 to 8, and we know what we need to do. And then, yeah, you can rev up 4 million baseline revenue to 6. This is obviously something that we would encourage to be explored over time, not open heart surgery. But we've seen this many, many times. And the keeping the players happy, making sure your team has what they need to be successful, and then revving up the business engine is obviously, yeah, ultimately, yeah, the opportunity that we have with golf being so active right now. Sorry, I was scooting through that because I'm mindful of time, Dale. But do you have any last considerations for the audience that's listened in? We're bang on time now, but
I
also maybe if there's any Q&A questions, you can shoot them through. We'll try and answer them.
I would say if you're thinking about it, it's not a hard sell. Tag Marshall, hands down, from what I've seen with the other GPS systems. I think the big thing for me is knowing that I have the data at my fingertips and facts don't lie. If you have a
Mhm.
group that, I mean, I had a group come in that took us, 5 hours to play. Really, what group was it? Pull it up. I said, well, it says here you played in 4 hours and 28 minutes, start to finish, even making the turn. And it ended the conversation. People sometimes people come in with argumentative intent, and you can either face them with facts or try to pacify them. But I'm not a pacifier, so I just face them with facts and say if the data says otherwise, and they kind of don't know where to go with that, so it ends the
Mhm.
conversation pretty quickly. But you know once again, delegating, I think the Tag Marshal Academy, getting your different staff, uh, delegate them some responsibility takes a bunch. I took it all on myself initially. Call me a control freak, I might be. But I wanted to know how everything worked and was applicable, what was more important, what is a little bit less of a focus. And as I get into this, I'm 100% committed. I think it's the best product on the market. And there's a learning curve with everything. The golfers, more and more are playing courses that have geofenced areas.
Mhm.
So when we bring it to their attention, oh yeah, we played such and such. We had same scenario. Um, I've had people that have gotten in and saw that we have Tag Marshall and we're excited that we have it, which I never would have thought was something to even make note of. But I've been standing on the range and hear him talk about it. I think some of the features, the touch screen, being able to hit a point on the screen and it pulls up yardage to that spot. You know, a lot of people don't even know that stuff exists. So it's getting that message to the customer. Almost everybody has lasers or GPS now. And I get people, oh man, the unit on the cart's almost exact to what my Bushnell rangefinder is. I
Mhm.
said, so they get impressed by certain things with the accuracy of it. And I know you had mentioned that in an email that there was more satellites being sent out, some
Mhm.
upgrades.
Mhm.
That's just going to make the system that much more efficient, more accurate.
Sure.
Just think that if anybody's considering it, there's so much that you can use that's in your favor. Once the golfers are on board and primarily the staff has to be the big proponents, and reflect on it in a positive sense. Even if you have some complications, technology is not foolproof. There are
Mhm.
downtimes, and just like a point of sale, if it locks up or freezes,
Mhm.
it's an inconvenience. It's short term, but it never seems to happen at the right time.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Dale, for the positive feedback. Really, really appreciate it. One of the things that you mentioned is your team, and you want to empower your team, and it's the same for us, right? As myself and my business partner who started Tag Marshal with a vision to make the game faster and to bring data into an industry that was not using it yeah, to what it can be. And we are very blessed to have amazing people on our team. And Joey Walters, one of them, our GM, he's down the road from you in Atlanta. And obviously we have a support team that's online, yeah, literally 24/7, and they'll pick up the phone if you have any questions or issues. We've even built in a chatbot that talks to you if you have questions. How do you set up a geofencing again? It'll tell you so that you can self manage. But yeah, we're just a call away, and yeah, we're delighted to yeah, have gotten to know you a bit better, and also the course. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting in person. I don't know if you're going to the Golf Inc. event down at Hilton Head end of September. If you do, give us a holler. And if not, maybe the PGA show if you come down for it.
You got it.
Dale, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening in. We will share this recording. And I know, Mark, you asked a question. Can we share the slide deck? Reach out via email. We'll certainly get that to you and other information that might be helpful to you. All right, Dale, all the best. And we will see you
Thank
soon.
you. Everybody have a great week.